The Great Hall of the Dominion stretched across 3 kilometers of polished black stone. Floating platforms held representatives from 47 different species, all of them waiting in nervous silence. They had ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years, and when they called a meeting, no one dared to refuse. High Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber. His tall gray body cast long shadows across the floor. 6 eyes blinked slowly as he surveyed the gathered ambassadors. These were the leaders of conquered worlds, species that had learned long ago to bow before power. They paid tribute. They provided soldiers. They never questioned. Raised one clawed hand, and the hall fell completely silent. A holographic display flickered to life above him, showing a small blue planet spinning in the darkness of space. "We have discovered a new civilization," announced. His voice echoed through translation devices worn by every representative. "They call themselves humans. They live on this world they name Earth." The display shifted to show images of human cities, tall buildings of glass and steel, vehicles moving along paved roads, spacecraft that looked primitive compared to even the oldest designs. Ambassador of the Collective leaned forward on his platform. They had served the Dominion for 800 years as soldiers and laborers, studied the footage with his compound eyes, and let out a chittering laugh. "These creatures are barely evolved cave dwellers," he said. "Look at their ships. They still use chemical propulsion. They have no shields, no plasma weapons. Their bodies are soft and weak. Why do you waste our time with this, High Chancellor?" Several other ambassadors joined in the laughter. The representative made a gesture of dismissal. The delegation exchanged amused glances. Waited for the mockery to fade. His expression did not change. "You are correct that they possess no significant technology. They have no psychic abilities. Their average less than 100 years. By every measurement we use, they are insignificant." He paused. The hall grew quiet again. "And yet my reconnaissance commanders have returned with troubling reports. These humans have only been traveling between stars for 80 years. In that time they have spread to 12 worlds. They have survived 3 major wars among themselves. They have rebuilt their civilization after nuclear devastation." 6 eyes narrowed. "They are persistent." On the far side of the galaxy, Commander Lisa Porter stood in the operations center of the United Nations Space Division. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. 20 years of military service had taught her to remain steady in crisis, but the data on her screen tested that training. 300 ships, said General Henry Cole. He stood beside her, his dark face grim. "The alien fleet will reach Earth orbit in 6 days. Lisa studied the sensor readings. The approaching vessels dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons' signatures alone suggested power beyond anything human science could match. "How many ships do we have?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. 12 combat-ready vessels, another 8 in various stages of repair. Cole shook his head. "We cannot fight this, Lisa, not directly." She turned away from the screen and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the Swiss Alps. Children played in a park below. People walked home from work, unaware that their world was about to change forever. Humanity had always known they were not alone in the universe. They had detected signals, found artifacts, pieced together evidence of vast civilizations among the stars. But they had never made contact. They had never been contacted. Until now. "They expect us to surrender," Lisa said quietly. "Every species they have ever encountered has surrendered. That is how empires work. They show overwhelming force and their enemies give up." Cole moved to stand beside her. "Can you blame those species? Look at what we are facing. We have no chance." Lisa was silent for a long moment. She thought about human history, the ice ages that had nearly wiped out their ancestors, the plagues that had killed millions, the wars that had continents. And yet here they were, still building, still reaching for the stars. Humans have never been good at accepting what we cannot change, she finally said. We fight floods, we cure diseases, we cross oceans because someone told us we could not. She turned to face Cole. We will not surrender, Henry, not because we can win, but because surrender is not who we are. Cole stared at her. They will destroy us. Perhaps, but we will make them work for it, and maybe that will be enough to matter. Back in the Great Hall was concluding his address. I am dispatching Fleet Commander with 300 vessels. Standard contact protocol. The humans will submit or they will be made an example. Raised a thin limb. High Chancellor, forgive my confusion, but why send 300 ships against primitives? Surely a dozen would be sufficient. Considered the question. In truth, he was not entirely certain himself. Something in the reconnaissance data had unsettled him. The way humans had survived their own self-destructive tendencies. The stubborn persistence that had pushed them into space despite their limitations. Consider it a training exercise, he said dismissively. Our younger commanders need experience. The assembly accepted this explanation. Platforms began to disperse as representatives returned to their ships and their conquered worlds. But one ambassador lingered. A young aide named stood at the back of his delegation's platform, still staring at the holographic image of Earth. He had served the Dominion his entire life. He had never known anything else. Yet something about these humans stirred a feeling he could not name. They were weak. They were primitive. They should have been nothing. So why did looking at them make him feel something like hope? The image faded and followed his delegation out of the hall. But he did not forget those soft creatures on their small blue world. He had a feeling the galaxy would be hearing more about them very soon. 6 days later, the fleet arrived at Earth. Commander Lisa Porter stood ready to meet them. She had no weapons that could match theirs. She had no shields that could stop their attacks. She had only one thing they had never encountered in 3,000 years of conquest. She had the stubborn refusal of an ordinary human to accept defeat. The sky over Geneva turned dark as the fleet took position above Earth. 300 warships blocked out the sun, casting shadows across the entire city. People stopped in the streets and stared upward. Some ran. Some screamed. Most simply stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. Fleet Commander watched the human reaction from his command vessel with amusement. This was always his favorite part. The moment when a new species realized how small and helpless they truly were. He had seen it dozens of times across dozens of worlds. The fear, the despair, the inevitable surrender. He transmitted a message to the surface. I am Fleet Commander of the Dominion. Your leaders will meet me at the following coordinates in 1 hour. Resistance will result in the destruction of your largest population centers. This is not a negotiation. Exactly 1 hour later, Commander Lisa Porter walked into the designated meeting hall. She wore her dress uniform, medals shining on her chest. Her face showed no fear, though her heart was beating fast. Behind her came General Henry Cole and a small team of advisors. Had landed with 50 armed guards. His tall gray form towered over the humans. He looked down at Lisa with obvious contempt. You are the leader of this world, he asked. I am the representative chosen to speak for humanity, Lisa replied. Her voice was steady. Made a gesture that might have been a smile. Very well. I will explain your situation once and only once. The Dominion claims this planet and all human-occupied worlds as territory. You will provide annual tribute in resources and labor. You will surrender all military vessels. You will provide genetic samples for our breeding programs. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing. Lisa listened without interrupting. When finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke a single word. No. Stared at her. His 6 eyes blinked in confusion. I do not think you understood. This is not a request. This is the terms of your surrender. I understood perfectly, Lisa said. And my answer is no. Humanity will not surrender. We will not pay tribute. We will not give you our ships or our genetic material. We decline your offer. The guards behind shifted uneasily. This had never happened before. Every species surrendered when faced with power. It was simply what happened. Leaned closer to Lisa. Perhaps you need a demonstration of what refusal means. He spoke into a communication device. Moments later, the sky flashed bright. A beam of light descended from the fleet above and struck a small island 50 kilometers off the coast. The island vanished in a pillar of fire and steam. When the light faded, there was only empty ocean where land had been. That was uninhabited, said. The next demonstration will not be. Now, do you wish to reconsider your answer? Lisa had watched the destruction without flinching. Now she met gaze directly. In our history, humans have destroyed far more than one island, she said calmly. We have burned cities. We have poisoned continents. We have split atoms and unleashed fire that could end all life on our world. And yet here we still stand. Do you know why? Said nothing. Because we rebuild. We always rebuild. You can destroy our cities and we will build new ones. You can kill millions and the survivors will continue. This is what humans do. We endure. Lisa stepped closer to him. So please continue your demonstrations if you wish. Every action has consequences. We are prepared to accept ours. Are you prepared to accept yours? Felt something strange. A sensation he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. For just a moment, he felt uncertain. He decided to use his strongest weapon. They had evolved powerful psychic abilities over millions of years. They could enter the minds of other beings, see their fears, and break their will without firing a single shot. Reached out with his mind and pushed into Lisa's consciousness. He expected to find terror. He expected to find a frightened animal pretending to be brave. What he found was something entirely different. He saw memories. A young girl watching her mother die of disease and vowing to become a doctor. A soldier carrying wounded comrades through burning wreckage. Prisoners in ancient camps scratching marks on walls to count the days, refusing to lose hope. Parents working 3 jobs so their children could have better lives. He saw war and famine and plague. He saw humans betraying each other, killing each other, failing each other in countless ways. And yet beneath all of it, he felt something he could not understand. A stubborn flame that refused to die. A voice that whispered, "We will survive this too." From her mind so suddenly that he stumbled backward. His guards caught him before he fell. "What are you?" he demanded. Lisa smiled slightly. "We are humans, we are ordinary, and we do not give up." Ordered his guards to return to the ship. He did not look at Lisa again as he left. His hands were shaking in a way they had not shaken since he was young. Back on his command vessel, he contacted High Chancellor. The transmission was encrypted at the highest level. "Report," commanded. Struggled to find words. "These humans are defective, High Chancellor. Their minds do not work correctly. They have seen my power. They know they cannot win, and yet they refuse to surrender." Impossible. Every species surrenders when faced with superior force. Not these creatures. Paused. I entered the mind of their leader. I showed her our power. I tried to break her will, but there was nothing to break. She has already faced the worst her own existence can offer. Our threats mean nothing to a being who has already accepted that life is suffering and chosen to continue anyway. Was silent for a long moment. Destroy their capital city. That will change their perspective. High Chancellor, I am not certain it will. I looked into her mind. She was not bluffing. They will watch their cities burn and still refuse to kneel. Then we will destroy them all. Felt that strange uncertainty again. If we do that, we gain nothing. A dead species pays no tribute, and I believe word of their defiance will spread. Other species will hear that someone finally said no to us. What happens then? Image flickered on the screen. For the first time in centuries, the High Chancellor of the Dominion did not have an immediate answer. Far below, Lisa Porter stood at the window of the meeting hall, watching the alien fleet hang in the sky like a promise of death. She did not know if her gamble would work. She did not know if humanity would survive the coming days. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever happened next, humans would face it standing up. The recording spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Someone on staff had leaked the footage of the meeting. Within days, billions of beings across hundreds of worlds had seen a small human female tell Fleet Commander no. At first, most species dismissed it as fake. Surely no one would refuse it had to be propaganda or some kind of trick. The Dominion had ruled for 3,000 years. Defiance was not possible. But the footage kept spreading, and slowly beings began to wonder. On the mining world of Seven, huddled with a group of fellow workers in the darkness of their sleeping quarters, the mines never stopped. They worked 16-hour shifts extracting precious metals for their masters. They had done this for 800 years. Their grandparents had done it. Their children would do it. Held a small data device that showed the recording. The other workers watched in silence as Lisa Porter spoke her single word of refusal. "This cannot be real," said an older worker named. "That would have killed her immediately." "They did not," replied. "I have seen other reports. The human world still stands. The fleet remains in orbit, but they have not attacked." Why would they hesitate?" Shook his head. "I do not know, but these humans did something no one has ever done. They looked at power and said no." The workers passed the device around, watching the footage again and again. They memorized the way Lisa Porter stood straight, the calm in her voice, the complete absence of fear. That night dreamed of saying no. He woke with the taste of the word in his mouth. Across the galaxy, General Henry Cole sat in the command center of Earth's defense network. The past week had been tense. The fleet had not attacked again after destroying the island, but they had not left either. They simply waited, watching. "We need to do something," Cole said to Lisa. "Sitting here waiting for them to decide our fate is destroying morale." Lisa had been thinking the same thing. They expected them to cower. They expected humans to eventually break and surrender. Instead, humanity needed to show that they intended to keep living their lives. "Open a channel," she said. "Broadcast on all frequencies. I want every species in this galaxy to hear what I have to say." The technicians worked quickly. Within minutes, Lisa's voice was traveling through space at the speed of light, reaching relay stations that would carry it to distant star systems. "My name is Lisa Porter. I speak for the human species of Earth. We are a young civilization. We have only traveled among the stars for a short time. We have no great technology. We have no powerful weapons. By the standards of this galaxy, we are ordinary." She paused, letting the words settle. "The Dominion has demanded our surrender. We have refused, not because we believe we can defeat them in battle. We cannot. We have refused because we believe that every thinking being in this universe deserves the right to choose their own path. We believe that freedom is worth more than safety. We believe that standing up matters, even when standing up means being knocked down." In mining colonies and factory worlds and slave camps across space, beings stopped their work to listen. "We offer our friendship to any species that desires it. We do not promise victory. We do not promise protection. We can only promise that we will be honest with you. We are not saviors. We are not warriors. We are simply people who have decided that we would rather die free than live on our knees. If that means anything to you, then you are welcome among us." The transmission ended. Lisa leaned back in her chair, exhausted. She had no idea if anyone would respond. She had no idea if her words would change anything at all. 3 days later, the first message arrived. It came from a small resistance movement on an agricultural world. They had been secretly opposing rule for decades, hiding in mountains and forests, barely surviving. They asked how humans had become so fearless. Lisa recorded her response personally. "We are not fearless, we are terrified. Every human who saw your master's ships felt fear. We simply refuse to let fear make our decisions. Fear is a feeling. Courage is a choice. We choose courage even when we are shaking." More messages came. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Species that had not spoken to anyone outside Dominion control for generations reached out to these strange creatures who had done the impossible. High Chancellor watched the communications with growing alarm. His intelligence officers reported unrest on multiple worlds. Workers were whispering to each other. Soldiers were asking questions. A name was spreading through the ranks of subject species. "Humans, why do you not simply destroy them?" demanded Admiral, one of senior commanders. "End this before it spreads further." "Because destroying them might make it worse," replied. "They have become a symbol. If we kill them, they become martyrs. Every oppressed being in our territory will remember that someone wants us. The memory will be more dangerous than the humans themselves." "Then what do we do?" Stared at the star map showing human space. Such a small territory, such weak beings, and yet somehow they had created a problem that 3,000 years of rule had never faced. "We must make them surrender publicly," he said finally. "We must show the galaxy that defiance leads nowhere, that hope is pointless, that the Dominion always wins in the end." He began assembling a larger fleet. This time there would be no negotiation. This time the humans would break, or they would be broken. But as he gave the orders, felt something unfamiliar in his ancient chest. A tiny seed of doubt. A whisper that perhaps, just perhaps, he had underestimated these ordinary creatures. On 7 walked into his shift at the mines, but today he walked differently. His head was higher, his steps were steadier. His supervisor noticed. "What is wrong with you, worker?" Looked at the overseer. For the first time in his life, he met those 6 eyes directly. "Nothing is wrong," he said. "I am simply remembering something I had forgotten." "And what is that?" Did not answer, but in his mind he heard Lisa Porter's voice. "We choose courage even when we are shaking." He picked up his tools and went to work, but now he worked while planning. The humans had started something. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would have the courage to finish it. The second fleet was 3 times larger than the first. 900 warships assembled at the edge of human space, their combined firepower enough to reduce every human world to ash. High Chancellor himself came aboard the flagship to oversee the operation. "This ends today," he announced to his commanders. "We will give the humans one final chance to surrender. When they refuse, we will begin systematic destruction of their colonies. We will broadcast the attacks across the galaxy. Every species will see what happens to those who defy us." On Earth, General Henry Cole studied the approaching fleet with grim determination. 12 human warships faced 900 vessels. The mathematics were impossible. "We cannot win this," said Captain Daniel. He commanded the defense ship Endurance, the largest vessel in humanity's small fleet. "You know that, General." "I know," Cole replied. "But Commander Porter believes we do not need to win. We only need to make this expensive enough that others will notice." "What does that mean?" "It means we fight, not to defeat them but to inspire whoever is watching." The fleet entered Earth's solar system in perfect formation, transmitted his final ultimatum: surrender in 1 hour or face annihilation. The message was broadcast across the galaxy as planned. Lisa Porter's response was equally public. The answer is still no. The battle began. Human ships used tactics they had never encountered. They did not try to match firepower or hold defensive positions. Instead, they attacked in small groups, striking and retreating, drawing individual ships away from the main fleet. Captain led the Endurance straight toward the enemy line. His crew knew they were probably going to die. They flew anyway. "What are they doing?" demanded Admiral, watching the human ship approach. "One vessel against hundreds. This is suicide." "They are making a statement," replied slowly. He was beginning to understand these creatures. They did not fight to survive. They fought to mean something. The Endurance took heavy damage but kept coming. Its shields failed. Its weapons went offline. Still it flew forward directly towards flagship. Opened a communication channel. His face appeared on screens across the fleet and on relay stations throughout the galaxy. "High Chancellor," he said. His voice was calm despite the alarms blaring around him. "My ship's reactor is armed for overload. I am 3 minutes from your position. If I detonate it against your hull, your flagship will be destroyed. You will die with me." Stared at the human. "You are bluffing. No sane being would choose death over surrender." "Scan my ship. Check my reactor readings. I am not bluffing." The technicians confirmed it. The human vessel's reactor was building toward critical overload. At current speed, it would reach the flagship before it exploded. "Destroy him," shouted. "We cannot," a tactical officer replied. "He is too close. If we destroy his ship now, the explosion will still damage us severely. We must move the fleet." Moving 900 ships in coordinated retreat took time. Time the humans used. More human vessels launched similar attacks, each one a suicide run designed to cause maximum damage. Across the galaxy, beings watched in stunned silence. These humans were dying. They knew they were dying. And yet they flew forward anyway, laughing at death, refusing to stop. On 7 watched the battle on a smuggled screen. Tears ran down his face. He had never seen courage like this. He had never imagined such courage existed. He turned to the workers gathered around him. "Now," he said. "If not now, then never." Walked to the mine entrance and looked at the guards stationed there. He was terrified. His hands were shaking. But in his mind, he heard Daniel's calm voice facing death. "We are done," announced. "We will not work in your mines anymore." The guards raised their weapons. "Return to work or die." "Then kill us," said. "Kill all of us, and explain to your masters why the mines produce nothing." He expected to die. He was prepared to die. The humans had shown him that some things were worth dying for. But the guards hesitated, and in that hesitation saw something he had never seen before in eyes. Fear. The same scene played out across 100 worlds. Workers stopped working. Soldiers refused orders. Ships crewed by subject species turned their weapons on their masters. In the battle above Earth, the vessels in the fleet suddenly broke formation. They had been watching the humans. They had been listening to broadcasts from 7. They had been remembering what it felt like to make choices. "What is happening?" demanded. "The ships are firing on us," shouted. "They have turned traitor." It was not just the ships joined them. Vessels switched sides. Species that had served the Dominion for centuries suddenly remembered that they had once been free. The flagship shook as explosions erupted across its hull, not from the humans, but from the very forces that were supposed to serve them. Captain watched from the bridge of the Endurance. He had been prepared to die. He had accepted his death, and now he was watching something he had never dared to imagine. The Dominion was cracking. "All human ships hold position," he ordered. "Let them fight. This is their moment." The battle lasted 12 more hours. When it ended, the fleet had been cut in half, not by human weapons but by the species they had enslaved. Admiral was dead. The flagship was crippled. High Chancellor sat alone in his damaged command center, staring at screens showing rebellion spreading across his empire. 3,000 years of absolute rule, and it was ending because a small group of primitive beings had refused to kneel. "How," he whispered to himself, "how did this happen?" But deep down, he knew. The humans had not defeated him. They had simply reminded the galaxy that defeat was a choice. And for the first time in 3,000 years, billions of beings had chosen differently. The war did not end with a single battle. It ended slowly, like ice melting in spring. Across the galaxy, commanders found themselves facing enemies on every side. Species that had been loyal for generations suddenly demanded freedom. Military bases fell not to superior firepower but to mass refusal. Workers stopped working. Soldiers stopped fighting. The great machine of the Dominion simply ground to a halt. High Chancellor watched his empire crumble from the ruins of his flagship. Reports came in every hour, each one worse than the last. Seven had declared independence. The had expelled its governors. The fleet had formally allied with the humans. His advisors urged different responses. Some wanted to launch devastating attacks on rebel worlds. Others suggested retreating to core territory and rebuilding. A few whispered that perhaps it was time to negotiate. Chose negotiation, not because he believed in peace, but because he had finally understood a terrible truth. The Dominion's power had always rested on the belief that resistance was impossible. The humans had proven it was possible. Once that belief shattered, all the weapons in the galaxy could not put it back together. The peace conference took place on a neutral station at the edge of human space. Lisa Porter represented Earth. She arrived with a small delegation, wearing the same uniform she had worn when she first told no. Entered the chamber alone. He had aged visibly in the months since the war began. His gray skin had darkened, and two of his 6 eyes remained permanently half-closed from injuries sustained when his flagship was damaged. They sat across from each other at a simple table. No guards, no weapons, just two beings who had somehow ended up at the center of galactic history. "You have won," said. His voice was flat, empty of the arrogance that had defined him for centuries. "What do you want? Revenge, territory, tribute?" Lisa studied him for a long moment before answering. "We want nothing." "Impossible. Every species wants something. That is how the universe works." "Then perhaps humans work differently." Lisa leaned forward. "We want to be left alone. We want other species to have the same choice. That is all." Made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. "You expect me to believe that you fought a war, inspired a galactic revolution, and destroyed an empire that lasted 3,000 years because you wanted nothing. We did not destroy your empire, High Chancellor. Your empire destroyed itself. You built it on fear, and fear only works as long as everyone believes they have no other option. We simply showed them another option existed." "And what option is that?" Lisa thought carefully before answering. "The option to lose with dignity instead of winning with shame. The option to die standing instead of living on their knees. For 3,000 years, you taught the galaxy that survival was the highest goal. We taught them that some things matter more than survival." Was silent. His remaining functional eyes studied the human female before him. She was so small, so fragile. Her species lived barely a century. They had no psychic powers, no natural weapons, no special abilities of any kind. And yet somehow, impossibly, they had beaten him. "What makes your kind so different?" he asked finally. "I have conquered hundreds of species. None of them resisted like you. None of them inspired others to resist. What is your secret?" Lisa considered the question seriously. "I do not think we have a secret. I think we are exactly what we appear to be, ordinary beings who decided ordinary was enough. We are not stronger than the species you conquered. We are not smarter or braver. We simply made a different choice." "What choice?" "We chose to believe that who we are matters more than what happens to us. We chose to define ourselves by our actions, not our circumstances. Every species you conquered had that same choice. You just convinced them they did not." The treaty was signed 3 days later. The Dominion formally recognized the independence of all member species. Tribute payments ended. Breeding programs were abolished. Military forces too. General Henry Cole watched the signing ceremony from Earth. Beside him stood Captain Daniel, who had somehow survived the battle despite fully expecting to die. "Did you know this would happen?" asked. "When you sent us to fight an unwinnable battle, did you know it would end like this?" Cole shook his head. "I had no idea. Lisa had a theory, but even she was not certain. She just believed that somewhere in the galaxy, others were as tired of fear as we were." And she was right. She was right, Cole smiled slightly. "Turns out humans are not the only beings who dream of freedom. We just reminded everyone that the dream was possible." In the years that followed, species from across the galaxy came to study humanity. They analyzed human DNA and found nothing special. They examined human brains and discovered no unique structures. They reviewed human history and saw a species that had spent most of its existence fighting and failing and making terrible mistakes. They found no secret weapons, no hidden advantages, no explanation for why these particular beings had changed the course of galactic history. What they found were ordinary creatures who had simply refused to accept that ordinary meant powerless. Lisa Porter retired from the Space Division and spent her final years writing a simple book. It was translated into over 1,000 languages and became the most widely read text in the galaxy. The title was just 2 words: "Keep Going." The book contained no military strategies or inspirational speeches. It was just a collection of stories about ordinary humans who had faced impossible situations and refused to give up. A woman who walked 1,000 miles to find her family. A man who taught himself to read at age 60. Children who laughed and played in the ruins of bombed cities. Beings across the galaxy read these stories and recognized themselves. They too had suffered. They too had wanted to quit. And now they knew that the choice to keep going was not uniquely human. It belonged to everyone. The Dominion, which had ruled through fear for 3,000 years, eventually joined the Galactic Alliance as an equal member. They were still a powerful species, but power meant something different now. It was not about domination. It was about what you did with what you had. High Chancellor lived long enough to see the change. In his final years, he often thought about his first encounter with humanity. He had expected them to surrender. He had expected them to break. Instead, they had simply looked at him and said no. It was such a small word, such an ordinary word, and yet it had changed everything. The entire galaxy had surrendered to ordinary humans, not because humans were special, but because they had proven that no one had to be special to matter. They had proven that the universe belonged to anyone brave enough to claim their place in it. And that, in the end, was the most extraordinary thing of all.